And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio, a day after the massive student protest. How exciting. I'm sure we accomplished a lot. We'll get your phone calls on that one. Also, today we have a pair of tickets to be given away for Dancing with the Stars. That'll be tonight. So you've got to come to the elaborate palatial broadcast center. And what you have to do is you have to pick these tickets up before 5. We have a pair to give away. We'll give them away in the 8 o'clock hour. And, of course, much, much more on the snapping turtle, the teacher, and the puppy. Good times, good times, good times. How do we top that? Well, we go to our great friend from the state of Florida, Eric Macrush. You remember Eric, an analyst here, now doing work in the big time. He joins us this morning live from Naples, Florida. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Pleasure to be with you. And I heard Larry Gilbert's weather forecast. It's going to be 74 here today.
Indeed.
So there's that.
Well, thank you for the weather update from Florida. We really appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about the situation in Florida to begin with. You live there. You work there. What has been the reaction of the shootings in Parkland in Florida? Obviously, it's reciprocated throughout the country. We've had the ripples here in Idaho. But what was it like living in Florida when that shooting occurred?
Well, I mean, obviously, and I think everybody would say that it's just a traumatic effect and tragic for the loss of life. And I think that it's good to have the discussions, right? And I think we've seen that nationally. Unfortunately, a lot of these things get hijacked in the public eye, and agendas start coming forward very quickly. And you get bad policy when that happens. Here in Florida, we saw a pretty big reform go through with not being able to buy a gun until you're 21 now, which obviously is somewhat constitutionally a problem. And I think we're going to start seeing that around the country as well. I think that those type of issues are going to come up before state legislators and maybe at the federal level. And it's a shame because law-abiding citizens now can't buy a gun, but we can send them off to war. Single moms can't protect their kids. I mean, there's just all kinds of array of issues that come up from that. But obviously, we're all paying attention to that very closely. I know a lot of friends back there in Idaho doing the same thing, and it's a shame that these things happen. But we need to continue to be civil-minded and protect our constitutional rights at the same time.
Yeah, that was a nice spin. But what was it like in the state of Florida when it happened? As a person, what went on in your mind?
Yeah, first thing was I wanted to go home and grab my kids, to be honest with you, because actually at our kids' school the next day they actually arrested a kid that brought some guns to school. So I mean it was horrifying. It was something that woke me up that there's a big problem, and when we have these gun-free zones, it's a big problem, and it scared me. I'll be honest, it scared me. We had several members of our church who lost children that lived over there. And it's real. It's real when somebody this close to your family or this close to your home, these situations happen. It's scary.
Indeed. Of course, then we have the fear, and then we have the legislation. You have Congress passing some type of bill yesterday, a school safety bill. You have to wonder, though, how can you stop this if you can? And then we have these student protests. Let's continue on.
Sure.
At one time here worked in the state of Idaho. You were a big landowner that was in Canyon County, right? Didn't you have
that is correct.
Didn't you have 75 acres and you were building Macrush World or something like that?
Something like that. Wally World, I think, is what we were going to call it. But yeah, something like that.
Indeed. So now you're in Florida, but you keep track of what's going on in Idaho. Your thoughts on this legislative session?
So lots of things have come up, and I thought it was pretty interesting because I do keep very close track of what's going on back there, of course. But I was glad to see that the Medicaid bill, the expansion bill, died in the House. That was somewhat worrisome that they're still talking about that back there, and that the governor is pushing those kind of things. I understand there was some tax reform that was happening, but maybe not the best. I think that as I look at legislation, I keep following it. It seems like they're whittling away. The legislature keeps whittling away at these personal property rights of individuals. And so, I just encourage people to really dive into what's happening at the State House and stay informed, and ask their congressmen, or ask the representatives and their senators, why are we doing these things? I know Grant Burgoyne very well, and he's got a bill that he's been pushing for the THC, the medical marijuana chemical pills. I think that's a great piece of legislation, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of people who don't want the opioids in their lives, and that's a good alternative, especially for end-of-life kind of scenarios.
Of course, the CBD oils has been shot down again. Yeah. And, and this is the ironic thing, Eric, that, we had one state senator, Leiter, or Hyder, whatever his name is, who didn't like the debate going on, shut down the debate, took everybody to his office, a clear violation of the Sunshine Laws, and you could hear him and people yelling in there, saying the governor, the attorney general, no one wants this bill. So it's been a lot of drama and, some of the worst kept secrets that the governor runs the legislature has actually leaked out into the mainstream press. So, again, we'll see how that plays off into the primary coming up. But as you know, when you were here, the governor has a lot of influence on what gets a hearing and what doesn't.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's a shame because, the reason why we have these separation of powers at the state and federal level is so that we can keep people accountable. And when you have somebody that's like the governor, who's very heavy-handed in a system where the legislature only meets a few months out of the year and really doesn't drive the agenda, that's a big problem. That's a big problem for the people of Idaho.
Indeed, and we'll see how that plays off. So now we've got Dr. Tommy Ahlquist, we've got Congressman Labrador, we've got Lieutenant Governor Brad Little, all running to succeed Governor Otter. Each brings his own to the table. Congressman Labrador just today releasing his television ad, his first one. You've had Dr. Ahlquist on the air for quite some time, Brad Little on the air for a couple months. How do you see this playing out, again, from someone who has worked the state on the inside and outside and now from about 60,000 feet? Yeah.
So let me start with probably Brad Little. Brad Little's wanted to be the governor for a lot of years. He was even in the Senate. And so he's kind of the insider, like you said. He's kind of the establishment guy.
Hold on. I didn't say that. You said that.
No, I said that. That was me. So, and you know how these primaries go, right? Everybody wants to run to the edges and say they're not the establishment person or whatever. But Brad Little has wanted to be governor for a long time. That's not a big secret. And so unfortunately, sometimes we see this, hey, I paid my dues. Now it's my turn since I was lieutenant governor. And so that's unfortunate. That fortunately is not always the way it goes. And so, I don't know who's going to win, of course, but I don't see him winning. I think that Raul Labrador has done a good job as far as being in Congress. I think he's really stood up to the establishment there. There have been many times that he has not stood up to the establishment. I remember several years ago when he got kind of his hand slapped for standing up, and he kind of fell back in line, if you will, at the national level. But I think overall, Raul Labrador has done a fine job. I think he's been able to keep his priorities straight and his messaging well said, and I think that he's been able to really hold himself accountable as well as fighting for the people of Idaho. I don't personally know. I know both Brad Little and Raul Labrador. I don't personally know Tommy Ahlquist. I know he's gotten Mitt Romney has endorsed him, so that was pretty interesting, pretty much right out of the gate back in maybe November of last year. So I think that Tommy's probably going to have a good part of that Eastern Idaho contingent vote for him. Of course, the centers are really the Northern Idaho and in the Boise area.
Not really the East that much.
Not really the East.
That's a question. Not really the East when you're saying as far as the center. So you're saying really it's almost like the first TD has a big influence in this race, more so than the second. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is a Treasure Valley, and then you get up into in Northern Idaho.
Eric McRush.
That's where these are paid. So, yep.
All right, Eric McRush joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. We always appreciate him. One of our great friends, of course. He's the gentleman that helped Greg Pruitt and I continue on. Of course, Greg had a great forum, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance gubernatorial forum. See, this is how I kind of see it. You've got, on one hand, the lieutenant governor relying on now in his ads, mentioning Governor Otter, looking at how the governor won the last time and maybe the time before, looking at traditional Idaho, the backbone of the state, the farmers, the ag, folks that, you've got Vicky Risch as his treasurer, so that sends a message. You've got the congressman who's got the activists and such. But again, he's outgunned when it comes to money. He's going to do it as he's done in the past with the ground game. And then you have Dr. Ahlquist, who has the business community, emergency room doctor, certainly has many people, including the founder of Sensi, as his person. So, again, each one has a unique background. And, Eric, as you've studied these races, as you've worked with these guys for years, I guess it's who's ever can kind of co-opt at least one or the other constituencies, whether it's Ahlquist with Labrador's based or Labrador with Ahlquist's businesses folks, or the lieutenant governor hoping those two split the conservative vote and he rolls in.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. And really the two races, I think you pinpointed perfectly, Kevin, as usual, that the two races probably are the Ahlquist and Labrador races, because if one of them is able to capture more of that conservative base, then they will win the primaries the way I see it.
And then you have A.J. Belukoff back running again. We'll see how that plays off. Let's go to the first CD. Who will succeed Congressman Labrador? Now, in an unusual move, the congressman has endorsed Russ Fulcher. They've been very close for years. Also, Ted Cruz has endorsed Russ Fulcher. Ted Cruz still very popular here. I would argue more popular than the president, still to this day. Then you have some elected representatives. You've got the icon of Idaho politics, rivaling that of Governor Otter, David Leroy, in the race.
Yep.
A couple of unknowns and such. How do you see that? I could go. Here's my civics quiz for you, Eric, because you're always going, Kevin, you have to be prepared when you do a radio show. And I go, Eric, you've got Russ Fulcher, you've got David Leroy, Representative Malik, Representative Perry, Nick Henderson, Michael Snyder. I believe I haven't left anybody out, but if I did, Russ Fulcher. There you have it. Those are the big dogs right now.
Yeah, I think that Russ Fulcher, with his name recognition when he ran against Governor Otter, and did pretty well, actually, running against Governor Otter back 4 years ago, really, I think probably is going to be pulling forward to that pack. I think the rest of the people are probably going to split those rest of those votes. Christy Perry, I know she kind of came out of the gate running and has really spun that campaign up for a long time now. She probably does not have much of a chance to run. So I think Russ Fulcher's probably going to take it, I don't want to say by a landslide, but with a really good margin.
Well, that would be the popular choice, although you could say David Leroy is known. You've got Michael Snyder, who is a well-known blogger, author, attorney, who says he's the most conservative and has been hitting Russ Fulcher with some of the folks that have backed him. Our great friend Tom Luna and others saying that he's the true conservative. Could that impact Fulcher at all? And if so, could that open it up for, let's say, a Perry, a Leroy, or a Malik?
I don't think so. I just don't think so. I think that Russ he's been doing very well in the polling. He's been doing very well in his campaign. I continually get updates from him just through a campaign side of things, things he's doing and the support he's getting. And he's been around for a long time, and he knows a lot of people. And to be honest with you, he's one of those guys that when he was in the state Senate, was very, very good on his issues, never really wavered, stood up against the governor several times, and just really held the line of the conservative vote. So it's really hard to hit him on his stance as far as his politics and his ideologies, because he has really been good. Christy Perry, not so much. She's wavered, and she voted for the Medicaid expansion. Same with Luke Malik. So those guys, they have some baggage there they got to answer for in their previous votes.
And especially in a primary, Eric Macrush will get you out on a couple more here at KIDO Talk Radio, a couple lifestyle questions here. I know you keep in touch with your friends here in the Gem State. Surprised that the Treasure Valley is the fastest growing area in the country.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? I mean, it continues to grow, and that's because of great people back there, great business. I think that people wanting to do business in Idaho, it's a good way to do business, and it's a great lifestyle. The atmosphere is great. The nightlife is decent, and they have one of the best talk radio show hosts in the country. So there you go.
Well, thank you. I'm no Drew or Trey or whoever you're cheating on me with in the Fort Myers Naples market. However, Eric Macrush, finally, what will be the legacy of Governor Otter?
I think it's going to be the Medicaid expansion, to be honest with you. I think that his inability to prevent or to cave into bringing Obamacare to Idaho. And that's a sad thing, because I think Butch has done some good things over the course of his political career, but I think that one's going to weigh heavy on him.
Eric, thank you for your service, your continued service in the Navy, and thank you for being our friend. We sure do miss you, and we're sure proud of you.
Hey, Godspeed. Thank you, Kevin, and good talking with you.
You ever come back, lunch is on me. You travel here sometimes.
All right. All righty, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Great friend Eric Macrush breaking down some of the big issues of the day, the governor's race, the congressional race, and, of course, issues in the legislature. You're always welcome to sound off and call at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. That's number one. Number two, we'll take a look at a few other issues going on throughout the Treasure Valley, your chance to respond to the big student protests, and some more updates concerning what's going on in Preston, Idaho. Currently 41 in Boise. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
The legislation provides money for metal detectors and other school security measures. It also provides training for teachers so they can better assess threats. House Speaker Paul Ryan praised the measure.
Tragic violence has no place in our schools. Every American believes that.
Florida Democrat Ted Deutsch says the bill is a good start, but
it will not solve our gun problem. It won't ban bump stocks or require Americans to be 21 to buy a gun.
Right now, there's no parallel legislation in the Senate. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
KIDO Talk Radio time is 6:27. Traffic and weather together. Let's get
Students are walking out of school in memory of the 17 Americans who died at Stoneham Douglas High School.
There have been far too many deaths caused by guns, specifically AR-15s, to do nothing about it. And just because we're young doesn't mean that we can't make change happen.
There we have it. More on that in a minute. By the way, your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Dancing with the Stars for tonight at the Morrison Center. Listen in the 8 o'clock hour for your chance to win that pair of tickets. Joining us now from Pocatello is Mark Mansfield. Mark, thank you for joining us. Good to have you with us on KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you, Kevin. It's good to be up and talking to you.
Well, we appreciate that, sir. So let's talk a little bit about dog safety and pet safety. Obviously, there's some issues that you would like to discuss with us here.
Yeah, and this is this is for safety of people and the safety of our communities. There's some people may have heard of this device called an M44 cyanide bomb, and it's a device that's used by an agency called Wildlife Services. Now, this is not U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It's not Fish and Game. People get it confused. This is an animal control department of the USDA. Anyhow, they put these devices out on the lands. They set them up into the ground. It looks like a sprinkler head. People come upon these things, animals come upon these things, and they get triggered. And your hunting dog or your hiking dog will smell this thing and trigger it with its mouth. It'll blow up in its face and kill them. This incident happened to my family 1 year ago. Today's the 1 year mark. It was a Thursday 1 year ago when my son was hiking above our house, 150 yards from our house, and came upon something that wasn't there before. Wildlife Services had set one of these M44 cyanide bombs, and there were no signs, although there's supposed to be signs. We weren't notified, although we were supposed to be notified. He came up and looked at it and touched it with his finger because that's what a kid does, and it went off. It almost killed him. He was severely injured and sick for over a month, and killed my dog. The sodium cyanide, when it hits moisture, which is in our mouths and in our eyes, it expands into a gas and kills you within minutes. So, my family was hurt by this, and we continue to fight the battle against Wildlife Services using this, it's an archaic, indiscriminate device that they use for predator control. Do you have any questions for me so far?
Just listening to your story, so why do they do this?
Well, they're trying to balance the contact between man and livestock and predators, and I understand the plight. We live here in Idaho, but really they do this because they're lazy, and they would rather you set out these cyanide bombs than do their job. It's typical government agency who's not responsible. They don't keep the proper records, and they don't pay attention to what they're doing. There are other means for predator control. There are groups that don't believe in predator control, and that they believe that there are better methods, non-lethal methods. This is not a discussion of that. This is a public endangerment discussion. And in my part, an anti-government discussion, because I don't know that there are any departments that really run that efficient. But they just do it because they're lazy. There are other easier ways. Talk to the 100 hunters and see how they would do it.
All right, Mark Mansfield, what would you like to tell people in the Treasure Valley? How can they get some more information on this?
Well, they should do their research about these things and realize that when you come upon one of these devices, you may not even know what it looks like. I get asked all the time with pictures, hey, is this a cyanide bomb? And I'm responding hours later. It's minutes. You're dead within 2, 3, 4 minutes if you trigger one of these devices. People should look into these and be aware that they're out there, and be very careful if they see something, and don't try to pick it up thinking it's trash, because if it's an M44 cyanide bomb, you're dead. There was a guy, Dennis Sloth from Utah. He triggered one of these bombs in 2002 while rock collecting, and it hit him in his face at an angle where he didn't breathe in a lethal dose, but he had vomiting and pain and for years until finally he succumbed to death. He actually died, weirdly enough. He died a year to the day that Wildlife Services set this cyanide bomb near my house. So, and that was just a couple of weeks ago that he died. Anyways, I don't want people to get hurt. I want them to pay attention to what's out there in our land.
Well, do you have a website or anything?
No, I don't. I'm not an activist. I'm a physician here in Pocatello, and I'm just a person who said, you hurt my kid, you killed my dog, who are you? I had no clue who they are, and so I continue to stand up and fight to get these out of Idaho, and we don't need them. Figure something else out. There's no reason for these things, and so just me.
All right, Mark, thank you. His phone was breaking up, but beware of the cyanide bombs.
The 10 a.m. bell rang at Boise High School like it does every day. But instead of heading to their next class, hundreds of students walked somewhere else.
It was awesome to be walking out at 10 o'clock and just watching the halls flooded with people.
Boise police shut down the streets of downtown so students could make their 3-block walk to the state capitol. But students did much more than just march. They sent a message.
Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
With signs and voices.
I just saw the sign that said I should be worrying about a pop quiz and not an active shooter, and that really hit home with me.
Enough is enough!
Powerful words.
I had great history teachers, and I don't ever remember learning of a time when more weapons led to peace and protection.
No, it's funny. This was the people that brought us the Women's March. And quite frankly, maybe I'm doing these kids a disservice at Boise High. I just don't think that they put this all together on their own. I think they were put up to this. Obviously, they're kids, and they're shouting and they're getting attention and they're making the millennials seem humble here. And you know these speeches and everything else, it's not going to do anything. Sadly, this is not what we call a public debate or discourse. Yes, you have a right to organize, but again, leaving school, what did it accomplish? You should have been worried about a pop quiz, not protesting outside the state capitol. And we'll hear more. And again, children, they're magical. Children, they're naive. That's why they're children. They don't have the life experiences that have flavored and colored and given us the wisdom that we have. And I just look at this and, going across the country and, besides the folks at Nampa High, the kids there saying, look, we want the Second Amendment. Now, the idea that you think that just because you say guns are evil without any critical thinking, without examining the issues is just darn right scary.
Gun reform needs to happen. If you hear, you want that change.
We have to acknowledge something. We failed these kids.
Followed by a...
I didn't fail these kids. I'm not acknowledging that. I didn't fail these kids. If you want to call yourself a failure. By the way, 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
Powerful symbolic action.
We ask that in this process, you lay down as a symbol of respect.
Please join us in silence as we read the names of only just a fraction of the students we've lost over the years. Rachel Scott, Cassie Bernal.
Victims remembered.
Josephine Gay, Anna M. Marquez Green, Marion Fisher, Anna Soltfus.
Students say they want lawmakers to really hear them.
It's like a big community of us supporting something that we don't believe in and something that we feel like is right.
Okay, do you pay taxes? Do you contribute to society? Look, no one else in the media will ask the tough questions. You're benefiting from our society. We're paying to educate these kids. And I think most of us will want our taxpayer dollars to be used for these kids to attend class.
So they took their message straight to the source.
We're the future voters. I'm 15. I'm going to be 18 in 3 years. If they know that this many kids out here who are all going to be able to vote soon are this upset about it, then that should really let them know, like, hey, I need to change my policy or else I probably won't be reelected.
And lawmakers should be seeing all these kids gathered around. Like, people took time out of their day to come down here and, like, make a point. And they should really see that. And hopefully parents and adults see that, too. Like, we're kids. We have ideas. We're going to be voting soon, and we have that right.
I'm missing school right now. I might get a truancy for it. And all these kids are in the same boat. But, yeah! But it's worth it to be out here making a difference.
Making a difference. Okay, you've heard my opinion at 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Did it make a difference to you? Did it make a difference with the state legislature? I mean, you got to sit there and go, it sounds more like a pep rally than anything else. An anti-gun political pep rally. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. We continue talking about the student press test. Let's go to Brad in Nampa with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. I wish I could have taken an afternoon off of form setting over here off of Emerald to go walk to the Capitol and protest something that I might have a right to in a few years, That's the funny thing. It seems as though that these kids who barely will have the ability to vote in a few years are seemingly knowing all about gun legislation. And correct me if I'm wrong, the Constitution originally stated that the voting age was indeed 21. So if you have to be 21 to own a firearm, then you have to be 21 to vote. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would agree with that. I just think these kids sound very naive in the fact I don't think they've taken American history or civics or anything.
Yeah, the one young woman that said she doesn't remember anything from her history teacher that said that more guns equals less crime. All I have to do is say, what about the American Revolution? What about every instance in which there is an active shooter in any situation in America? How does he end up being stopped? Say for the Las Vegas shootings back in the 70s, those were actually concerning in the fact that they had homemade body armor and the police force was severely undergunned. Now, you may ask, well, Brad, what did the Nevada police do to counteract future situations? Well, that's a good point. They, funnily enough, they got high-powered rifles, what these politicians would consider more high-powered machine gun automatic rifles.
Very good points, Brad. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
580, God bless, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joe in Nampa with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Joe.
Hi, Kevin. So just a little background here. I'm a retired police officer, and, listen to all the talk shows and whatnot. I get it. But in regards to these mass shootings and criminality in general, I mean, what I've learned on the job is, you got genuine criminals. You got people that do crimes of passion, domestic violence, they snap, whatever. Then you have people who are mentally snapped or have been mentally broken in some way, whether it was prescription drugs or, whatever that they're, prescribing these days. Because, like, when I was growing up, I never heard of ADHD and all that other stuff. But now it's widespread. Anyways, one of the things that I've learned on this job, at least, in my own opinion, is anytime, anywhere, there's no rules. People are walking out there in the streets and they do what they do. Good-hearted people, they do what they do. Go to the grocery store, go to church, things like that. Be generally nice, right? And then you got, people that are nuts. Or people that are opportunistic, looking for, a car to break into or whatnot. Anyways, getting back to these students, my opinion, they were being used by adult activists. I mean, you look at the video of Parkland where, they're all egressing. It's kind of weird that, understandably, they've got to get out of the school. There was a shooting, whether it was active or not, but they ran from a killer who had an AR-15, and ironically, they run to the cops with an AR-15. So it's like, wow. And then they want to get rid of all the guns. I get it. Okay, you know what? Out your passion. But the thing is, I mean, they ran from a guy with an AR-15 to a good guy with an AR-15. Okay, so, I just wanted to vent. Anyways, like your show, and, I'm glad to be listening. Anyways, thanks.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate it. And, that's where we go, a place to vent early in the morning. Kevin Miller here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget to be listening in the 8 o'clock hour, where we'll give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Dancing with the Stars coming to the Treasure Valley. Now, that show is tonight. You don't want to miss that. It'll be very easy. We'll tell you about that coming up, your chance to win. But we are taking your phone calls on this. And that was a protest in Washington, D.C., and you heard the protest from our friends from Channel 7, from the local kids doing it. And really, this is what it comes down to. What we're seeing right now is a seed that was planted back in 1995, 1996 from this guy.
We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Then Assistant Attorney General Eric Holder then became the Attorney General, now representing the state of California and how to sue the federal government. Remember, you have people saying guns are evil, and Eric Holder trying to compare guns to cigarettes.
We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
And who's to stop these folks? It's you and me. How to do it? Next. First, traffic and Kevin Miller in the morning here. David Bozell will join us. Plus, we'll have the latest from Fox News. And really, what can you say? The situation involving the students walking out thinking they're really doing something. Also, the latest from Preston, Idaho. Support for the teacher who fed the puppy to the turtle. Allegedly continues to grow. People are saying, Kevin Miller, let's have the other side of the story. And look, in any case that we have here, we're always willing to listen. Everybody wants to talk. This is the only show in America that really likes to listen. In fact, the other day somebody got on me and said, all you do is listen. Let's have more of you. When's the last time you heard that from a talk show? That's dangerous territory. Kevin Miller in the morning. Thank you for starting your day with us. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.